Welcome guys. So how you doing? Hope you all are doing great. So in this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto x Percy? This is part 1, and if you want more of this then like this video and check tree link for more. So let's get into video. The shadows of an abandoned village in the hinterlands of an unknown country were illuminated by two crimson eyes of aggression. Unadulterated rage flickered within the red voids of these eyes. A single outline skulked out from the blood-covered hut of the isolated village, glancing at the corpses strewn across the ground of the area. Naruto Uzumaki bared his fanged teeth, infuriated beyond belief. Masses of darkness around Naruto twisted and twirled. Two hellhounds emerged from the shadows of the village. Unhinged malice and hunger filled the hellhounds' vermilion gazes. Giving one of the hellhounds a ferocious and humorless grin, Naruto pulled out a rusted kunai from his sleeve and struck his shoulder into the monstrous entity. The hellhound was hurtled into a small hut. Twirling his aged weapon and matching the intensity of the hellhounds, Naruto propelled his kunai straight into the second one's skull. Yipping in unconcealed pain, the hellhound crumbled into dust. "You damn mutts keep following me, huh?" Naruto snarled without a single shred of amusement. "Man, all of you really piss me off." Naruto disappeared in a burst of unmatched speed, appearing in front of the hellhound thrown into the small hut of the village. Crimson eyes glinted an ominous sheen beneath the influence of the starlight. Dragging the hellhound by the scruff of its fur through the soil of the area, Naruto bashed its head 13 times into the ground. Another kunai was stabbed into the monster's skull, and it disintegrated. The palpable annoyance was evident in the vermilion voids of Naruto's gaze as he returned to the blood-covered hut he had been inside of earlier. Grabbing his backpack, Naruto let loose an irritated sigh. "Those pesky dogs won't stay down for long." Naruto grouched, an aggressive inflection to his somewhat low voice. "I hate this shit." Naruto adjusted the straps of his backpack, reaching the entrance of the blood-soaked village and leaving the deceased townsman behind him. Leaping onto the tree branches, Naruto vanished in a blur. Hopping from tree branch to tree branch for the next 2 hours, Naruto found himself a decent spot beneath a solid canopy of trees. Gathering sticks and twigs into a pile, Naruto managed to create a fire. Luxuriating in the weak warmth of the paltry flames in front of him, Naruto unzipped his backpack and rummaged through his belongings, a broken phone and a notebook. A frustrated groan bubbled out from Naruto's mouth as he buried his whiskered face into his calloused hands in confusion and displeasure. Naruto slumped his shoulders, irritation bleeding into his lazy posture. He had woken up 4 weeks ago in the middle of nowhere without any of his memories except for his name. Naruto Uzumaki. Groaning for the second time in frustration, Naruto leaned his head backwards. For the strangest of reasons, Naruto had some type of battle instinct ingrained into his body. When he had been ambushed by those hellhounds for the first time, he was able to slaughter them. Naruto listened to the crackling of the weak fire he had created, bathing in the sensation of warmth until his peaceful time of respite was interrupted by a polite cough. "What the hell do you want?" Vermilion eyes were flicked towards the direction of an anomalous individual. The man possessed silver eyes. He wore a white fedora and an expensive tuxedo. Kansu smiled. "Pleasure to see you too." Grunting in response, Naruto pondered about how he and Kansu had met. It had been Naruto's first week traveling through this forest, fighting off monsters, eating berries to feed himself, and looking for settlements. He had met the strange man in the tuxedo in one of the destroyed settlements the hellhounds and Impausai had plundered. After Naruto had massacred those monsters, Kansu made himself known. From there on out, Kansu would visit Naruto at the most random of times and would sometimes gift him more favorable food such as burgers, ramen, and sandwiches. Naruto scowled. "Answer me. You are such an irritable individual, aren't you?" Kansu rolled his silver eyes, smiling even more in amusement. "How have you been?" Naruto snorted. "I have no memories of who I am and I'm stuck in this forest. How the hell do you think I've been?" Kansu widened his small smile of unadulterated humor into a sibylline grin. "I think you've been doing an excellent job at surviving." Summoning a silver cane and dispelling the weak fire Naruto had crafted, Kansu created an orb of light to brighten the shadows of the woods. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Tell me what you want, Kansu." "Very well." Kansu sighed in feigned offense. "I have not been truthful about my identity in the 3 weeks we have known each other." Prudence replaced Naruto's annoyance in the blink of an eye. Naruto established a good amount of distance between himself and Kansu, fanged teeth glinting under the moonlight. "Who are you, then?" "I am Kansu, the Egyptian god of the moon and time." Kansu pointed a pristine finger at the moon in the sky. "That is who I am." Naruto tilted his head at an unbothered angle. "Why the hell is a god involving himself in my affairs?" He sneered. "What are you planning? You don't believe my claim of godhood." Kansu pressed a palm into his solar plexus, feigning deep hurt. "My feelings are in pure disarray." "What a dramatic asshole." Naruto mused to himself, arms crossed in contemplation. "You do realize I only remember my damn name?" "Indeed." Kansu touched his chin, expanding the size of the silver sphere that radiated a soft light. It's just so strange to me, you see. The deity of the moon hummed, thoughts filling his mind. From what I understand, you woke up in this forest without your memories. Applause for Captain Obvious. Naruto clapped his calloused palms together, unimpressed. Yeah, I woke up here 4 weeks ago. Picking at the dirt around his feet, Naruto groused. I woke up only knowing my stupid name. Then, these monsters started attacking me. The most irritating part is that every settlement I come across is covered in corpses. Naruto growled. This forest is endless, I swear. Silver eyes shimmered in amusement. I am an Egyptian deity, one who has the power to travel between dimensions of other pantheons. My name itself means traveler. Kansu explained. I've been debating on telling you this, but this forest is an artificial realm. Artificial realm. Naruto lurched forward in realization. You're telling me this forest ain't even a real realm, but made by someone else? Indeed, my good friend. Kansu replied. This must be hard for you to believe. But I can see beyond the veil of time and creation. Kansu's silver eyes glowed a sinister blue. And the veil of time and creation is telling me that this realm was designed to trap you. Trap me? Naruto had seated himself down on the ground, cross-legged. Who the hell would want to trap me of all people? I can't say, my good fellow. The deity murmured. Maybe whoever trapped you in this artificial realm also stripped you of your memories. Naruto propped his knuckles beneath his chin, sighing in annoyance. What should I do now, then? Stay trapped in this stupid realm. Having to travel through a forest that has no end, except for the occasional settlement and battle monsters who want to devour me. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore. Kansu chuckled and flourished his argent cane. I have decided to help you out. Why, though? Naruto glared at the silver-haired man. Who gave him a somewhat indulgent smile. What do you gain from helping me? Some entertainment from my years of traversing the realms. Kansu grinned, teeth shimmering from the light of his orb. Isn't that enough? Lifting himself to his feet and glancing at the illuminated shadows of the forest, Naruto heard Kansu snap his fingers at a discordant rhythm. A silver tapestry ignited in Naruto's vision before he grunted. Kansu slashed his silver cane in a diagonal motion across the air, opening a sapphire portal underneath Naruto's feet. Falling into this portal, Naruto saw Kansu wave a pale hand in his direction. Silver molecules of divine energy were created from the closed portal Kansu had summoned seconds ago. Tapping his cane against the ground of the artificial realm, Kansu flicked 3 fingers upwards. A tier in the atmosphere was constructed in front of the Egyptian deity of the moon. Smiling in perpetual anticipation, Kansu peered into the tier and watched Naruto land on his feet in the middle of a meadow. He's returned to the main realm that connects all pantheons Earth. Kansu pondered to himself, pleased. I do wonder who this boy is. Most people would expect Kansu to have discovered some type of clue regarding Naruto Uzumaki's identity from the 3 weeks they had been friends. However, Kansu had found no records of this child. I searched everywhere I could to find out who this boy could be. Kansu's smile was intrigued. But he is an unregistered existence. An unregistered existence was an existence unrecognized by the fabrics of fate, reality, and history. Kansu had never encountered one until he had met this crimson-eyed boy in this artificial dimension. Turning around and opening a portal for himself, Kansu disappeared into it before he reappeared behind Naruto, who had been scrutinizing the beautiful flowers within the enormous meadow. Having fun? Dropping the flowers he had gathered into his hand, Naruto answered. I'm more glad to know that I ain't trapped in some artificial realm. I still do wonder about the identity of the person who sealed you into that realm. Kansu's voice was casual. You're rather lucky, Naruto. How the hell am I lucky? If I hadn't encountered you in that artificial realm, then you would have remained trapped there for the rest of eternity. Thanks. Naruto glanced at the gray clouds in the night sky. Since I'm your source of entertainment, I guess you'll be sticking around. You're smarter than you look. Kansu let loose a melodic laugh. Egyptian deities cannot access this particular realm without a host. Vermilion eyes glowed in unconcealed ferocity. I don't have any intentions of lending somebody else my body. Don't even try it. Worry not, my blonde companion. Kansu shook his head, humored. I have tied myself to your soul. So that I can remain in this realm. I'd rather have whoever erased my memories tied to my soul than you. Naruto mumbled, sarcasm in his tone. Alright, what now? Don't you have any questions about Earth? Naruto shrugged. Not really. I did say I could only remember what my name is, but I do remember basic details about everything else. Good. Kansu hid an entertained smile behind a hand. I wasn't going to waste my time educating you about basic knowledge. You're such an asshole. Naruto retaliated, head canted at an annoyed position. Though, I still find it hard to believe you're a god. The deity of the moon and time released a breath of fake pain. Once again, Naruto Uzumaki, you hurt my feelings by thinking that I lied. You're also a damn riot sometimes, Kansu. Naruto rummaged through his pockets. I don't have any money on me right now. The sound of 2 fingers being clicked drifted into Naruto's eardrums. Silence then flooded the cold atmosphere of the gigantic meadow. Realizing Kansu had given him a new backpack, Naruto grinned. That bastard also disappeared on me. Seating himself down onto the grass and various flowers of the wondrous meadow, Naruto checked the items Kansu had left him. A repaired phone, wads of money, and a silver coin rested in his lap. Storing all of his new belongings into the backpack, Naruto strapped it onto his shoulders and searched for the entrance to the area. From the corner of his astute vision, Naruto noticed some kind of path. Meandering onto the path and following the arrows in the meadow, Naruto found himself in front of a rusted gate connected to an aged chain link fence. Pushing open the gate, Naruto heard it crack. How old is this gate? Naruto was baffled by the cracks instilled into the rusted gate's material. Why did Kansu transport me here? Naruto walked down the hill where the meadow had been and spotted an endless road that stretched off into the distance. Sighing in irritation, Naruto adjusted his backpack and disappeared in a blur. Kansu had teleported himself to the heart of New York City. Multiple cars drove across the streets. Mundane people loitered in countless areas. Couples strolled through the sidewalk, hand in hand. Mortals were such avid sources of entertainment for the Egyptian deity throughout the innumerable millennium he had been alive. Kansu had entered this section of Greek territory to conduct an investigation. It was an inconsequential detail about his red-eyed friend, but Kansu had caught sight of the obsidian sigil on Naruto's coarse hand. Hades' divine energy, albeit weakened, was in this sigil. Most normal deities would have never noticed this insignificant detail because of just how weakened the divine energy in the seal was. Whistling a merry tune, Kansu tapped his cane on the concrete. I was sure I sensed Hades' presence in this part of the city. Kansu cupped his chin, reaching the door to a secluded cafe. Here he is. The ring on Kansu's index finger shimmered a brilliant light, concealing his divine presence from the members of the Greek pantheon. Kansu tipped his bowler hat at the polite waiters. Ignoring the other mortals in his immediate vicinity, Kansu walked to the end of the cafe's wide room and gandered down at a black-eyed man who was dressed in priceless tuxedo. Hades. Using his divine energy to cast an illusion over the mortals in the sector, Kansu withdrew a wooden seat for himself and made himself comfortable on its leather-padded surface. How long has it been? Taking a grandiose sip of his expensive tea, Hades grunted. 300 years, Kansu. But what do you want from me? Oh? Leaning backwards in his wooden seat, Kansu lifted an immaculate eyebrow. Can I not visit one of my oldest friends? Friends? Hades scoffed in blatant amusement, sipping more of his sweet and delectable tea. You are the trickster of your pantheon. We have never been friends. Hades' obsidian eyes twinkled in irritation. What do you seek from me, traveler of dimensions? I guess the gig is up. Kansu raised his hand, summoning a framed photograph of a blonde individual. Tell me, do you know this child? Stealing the framed photograph from Kansu, Hades scanned the whiskered face, yellow hair, fanged teeth, and red eyes of the boy. He scoffed, unperturbed. I have never seen this boy once in my life. Kansu extended his unmatched senses out, ascertaining whether Hades' bored statement was true or not. To his hidden surprise, Hades was telling the truth. Hands clasped, Kansu grinned. You came to me for something else other than if I know the boy in the picture, didn't you? Hades sneered, annoyed. What do you desire? The composed grin of unadulterated insanity and unknown intentions stayed on Kansu's pristine face. Black motes of divine aura escaped Hades' body as his eyes glowed more bright. Speak to me, Kansu. You and I can both feel it, Hades. Kansu's breath was amused. The wheel of Kismet has spun in a new direction, hasn't it? An enormous shadow of intensity materialized from behind Hades the more and more Kansu spoke to him. The ruler of the underworld listened, silent. Hades, a great calamity has fallen upon us all. Dia is waking up from her slumber. Hades admitted, dispelling the shadows he had summoned earlier. That's what you want me to say, isn't it? Scrunching his silver eyes up in impartiality, Kansu replied. I've also heard about the prophecy of the seven, what do you think about it? My role in this world is to govern the dead. Hades scowled at the Egyptian god, unimpressed. That prophecy does not concern me. I have only one more question to ask. The endless depth within Kansu's silver eyes became deeper. Do you truly not know him? Grunting in condescension, Hades took another thorough look at the framed image of the blonde-haired boy. Snapping his fingers, he disintegrated the photo into plumes of smoke. I have never met him. What a curious situation I have found myself in. Kansu whispered to himself, tone interested beyond belief. Thank you for your time. Flourishing his cane and dissolving the illusion he had cast onto the mortals in the cafe, Kansu crumbled into blue particles. Hades sipped his tea, an eyebrow raised in bemusement. Why was Kansu so interested in that boy from the picture? Hades reconstructed the photo he had just destroyed. Who is this child? Transporting the framed picture into a random one of his pocket dimensions, Hades drank the last of his tea before he paid for his meal. This cafe was his favorite place to visit when he wanted tea. Hades exited the cafe, walked into a crowd of normal people, and disintegrated in an invisible hurricane of obsidian particles. Entering the underworld, the god of the dead stepped into his throne room. Shrinking his throne into a much more suitable size for the form he had taken, Hades waved his hand, and a parchment appeared in his pale hand. Grabbing an ink-tipped feather, Hades returned to work. Naruto had been successful in buying a bus ticket. Nestled into the back of the vehicle, he glanced at the constellations in the night sky from the glass of the bus's unopened window. He released a low yawn. Getting tired, are we? Kansu had somehow teleported himself into the seat next to Naruto on the bus. I advise that you stay awake. Burying himself deeper into the fabric of his seat, Naruto snorted. I don't plan on sleeping until I've decided on what I'm going to do. Good idea, my red-eyed friend. Kansu's silver cane dissolved into nothing. Have you thought of anywhere at all that you want to visit? Hands folded behind his head, Naruto grinned in mischief. Nah, I have no clue about where I want to visit. I can't remember shit. An hour had passed since the start of the trip on the bus, and Naruto had fallen asleep, gentle snores escaping his mouth. Meanwhile Kansu was experiencing an intense bout of contemplation. Despite Hades' weakened divine power being imbued into the scuffed sigil on Naruto's palm, Hades himself hadn't even recognized Naruto. Kansu tapped his finger on his knee, grin enlarging itself in delight. Glancing at Naruto for the briefest of moments, Kansu folded his arms. The Egyptian deity of the moon and time twisted the ring on his index finger, chuckling. When did I last feel such exhilaration? I have traveled countless realms across the centuries I have lived. Kansu monologued. Never have I encountered such a strange boy. Kansu rose from his seat on the bus once 3 hours had passed. Cane summoned into his right hand, he poked Naruto's right cheek to wake him up from his peaceful sleep. Red eyes were wrenched open. Scratching his eyes to remove the gunk gathered into them, Naruto clicked his fanged teeth before he let out a loud yawn of exhaustion. Kansu watched him in silence, noticing most passengers had left. Naruto and Kansu stepped off of the bus and were met by the sight of the hinterlands of America. Grass stretched as long as the eye could see. Numerous mountain peaks were visible in the distance. Blinking in sheer confusion at the lack of buildings around him, Naruto groaned in pure irritation at the realization he had bought the wrong ticket. Kansu was amused, however, and chuckled. How funny. I either bought the wrong ticket or got on the wrong bus. Naruto grew annoyed. Where the hell are we? Constructing a phone out of nothing, Kansu checked the area the two of them had ended up in. Interest shimmered in Kansu's silver abysses of intensity. It looks to me that we are in a type of countryside. Fun. An inflection of blatant sarcasm was evident in Naruto's tone. How the hell is being in the countryside going to help me out? No clue. Even more amusement flickered within the argent pits of Kansu's gaze. But they do say connecting to nature is useful. I don't think connecting to nature is going to be that useful for me. Naruto grouched, voice unimpressed. I guess we can explore. The two of them discovered a town 15 miles from where the bus had dropped them off. Meandering into a tavern, Naruto had the bartender give him the most popular drink that was on the menu. Crafting himself a credit card of perpetual money, Kansu tucked it into his pocket and ordered a glass of sour beer. Raising the cup of alcohol to his lips, Kansu took a long drawn-out sip of satisfaction. An illusion was set over the mortals of the tavern to ensure that Kansu and Naruto would be left alone by them. Gulping down his non-alcoholic beverage, Naruto sighed. Kansu, be honest. Why did you help me leave that artificial realm I was sealed into? Naruto had a suspicious expression on his facial features. Why? Besides to alleviate my boredom. Kansu shook the beer within his cup. I was curious about who you were and why you were sealed. Let me tell you about the different powers that govern this world. Kansu announced. Each section of Earth belongs to a pantheon. Pantheons are a collection of deities. There is the Greek pantheon, the Norse pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, and the Shinto pantheon. Kansu lifted an intrigued eyebrow as Naruto's red eyes widened a little in brief recognition at the mention of the Shinto pantheon. This recognition was then snuffed out and erased in the blink of an eye. It was an inconsequential detail. To Kansu, it was at least a sign of where this unregistered existence had originated from. However, Kansu felt the veil of time and creation warn him of something. From the veil of time and creation, Kansu saw a crimson miasma of unnatural energy touch the fabric of reality and the threads of history. Kansu was shocked. Impossible. How have I just noticed this? The crimson miasma of unnatural energy vanished and Kansu felt a foreign sensation touch his mind as his memories of what had happened were distorted, not altered or erased but distorted. For the shortest of moments, the words D7. INI2BBX07H9GSM.6 and RF6 number NVH$Y06H33G1KPXXT43 and 0 MYA61M1 plus EPLREP7I MGTPF E7 TFBE4GU equals JR8 equals A equals 6 number and 312 plus WL80S $1 number $F6 TV and BT7U91 and GT% SNO umlaut $43 EZUJF. Z8TG3KFRAFAT40.GUAH5B4G2 $5Y2ZGY2 and 2s JE6MMZ3NSMG 0 JY5U plus 2E4 and 3QS8 UAE6 NWFBD8 number VI equals XE4 percent 07 and Y1 EKG N4's GV2F equals E7 302 HRW 60% 19S7 U2Y $VTW equals E6% MZ $YL RL 4 volts BQ APX 07 plus percent 9 IZ plus U $L ES5 number UN and $YL 5% TGV $9 AFW 0.70 number equals A L point within Kansu's thoughts. Shaking his head at the sudden migraine he had gotten, Kansu used his divine power to heal whatever damage had been inflicted onto his mind. Next to him, Naruto finished his drink and paid the tab. Alloused hands slipped into his pockets, Naruto walked through the asphalted path of the small town. Many of the townsfolk glanced at Kansu, eyes blank and empty. Kansu smiled at some of the people. Kansu clenched his hand around the pommel of his cane. These mortals were not what they appeared to be. Also sensing the strange atmosphere from the town, Naruto paused in his tracks. Deciding to ignore the suspicion he felt from the townsfolk for the time being, Naruto ventured off into the south section of the area. Kansu followed him from behind, silver eyes glancing around the area. Planting a hand down on Naruto's shoulder and stopping him, Kansu flicked his silver cane forward. A burst of divine energy hurtled the townsfolk backwards. Naruto looked at the deity. What was that for? You and I both sensed the suspicious sensation that these mortals give off. Kansu twirled his cane. This town has been infected. Naruto pried Kansu's hand off of his shoulder. What the hell do you mean by infected? What, have they been plagued by a disease? I told you about how different pantheons govern different sections of the world earlier. Kansu replied. This town is under Greek territory. What I mean by infected is that this town, if my deduction is correct, has been taken over by monsters from the Greek pantheon. Muscles tensed in annoyance, Naruto scanned his immediate vicinity and stretched his senses out to scope out the whereabouts of the monsters Kansu claimed this town had been overrun by. Kansu was much more unbothered by the idea of these mortals being mind-controlled and hypnotized by a bunch of monsters. Wrapping both of his hands onto his cane, Kansu chuckled. It's about time I truly witnessed this boy in action. Kansu's smile was amicable enough. Let's see if he is worthy of my attention. The well-maintained houses around Naruto and Kansu exploded into splinters of somewhat rotted wood. Despite having his memories erased, Naruto retained his natural propensity for battle and violence. The Nimpausa who Naruto had decided to name Sydney released a hiss of endless aggression at the crimson-eyed child. Lips twisted into an insane smile, Sydney declared. Oh. Two clear-sighted mortals. Sydney sauntered towards Kansu in a baleful gait, tapping one of her clawed hands onto his neck. Smiling without a sign of concern, Kansu pointed his cane in a distinct direction. Watch out for him. A vermilion-eyed distortion of unnatural speed slammed the heel of his foot straight into Sydney's face and hurtled her backwards. Head tilted at an inhuman angle, Sydney screeched in rage and pain. How dare you even touch me, you rancid mortal. The Impausa lunged forward, bloodlust in her demented gaze. You shall pay. Kansu teleported himself onto the top of an undamaged house, observing as Sydney directed a multitude of mana-constructed bullets at Naruto's chest. She must have used magic to hypnotize the town. Adding the mana-constructed bullets downwards, Naruto glanced at the scorch marks on his hand. A crimson bubble of energy healed his burned flesh. Kansu, noticing this, whistled. A healing factor, huh? Sydney was propelled downwards by a roundhouse kick being pressed into her unguarded solar plexus. Rising to her feet, she gasped when a calloused hand smacked her into the ground again. Naruto must have been a formidable martial artist before his memories were lost. Kansu observed some more. He is skilled. He's lucky his body still remembers how to fight. Kansu lowered his gaze, glancing at another building. More monsters have come. Striking his palm against Sydney's jaw, Naruto pushed her into a pile of rotten wood from the houses that had been destroyed earlier on. A look from Naruto had Kansu rolling his eyes in amusement. Here. The kunai was summoned into Naruto's hand. Stabbing the Impausa through the skull, Naruto scattered her physical form into a hurricane of golden ashes. He scoffed. I guess the town is free from her. Stopping himself mid-sentence, Naruto lashed his arm out and buried his knuckles into the snout of the monster's hound that had dashed at him. The hellhound's crimson gaze was unhinged. More mutts. Naruto had encountered an endless amount of hellhounds in the artificial realm he had been trapped in. No matter how many times he destroyed those monsters back in that realm, they would return. It was as though someone had created a realm to seal Naruto into and had left those monsters in that dimension to hunt him down and kill him. Naruto smirked, spotting more and more monsters in the town. Adam Pausa must have tamed these mutts. Nonchalance was plastered onto Naruto's whiskered features. I'll slaughter them. Hansu remained rooted on the top of the undamaged house and watched Naruto massacre the monsters in the town without a visible sign of difficulty. Naruto eliminated the last hellhound, grunting. Such raw strength and inhuman speed. Kansu smiled. Who are you, Naruto Uzumaki? Who turned you into an unregistered existence? Ascending to the ground of the town, Kansu shouldered his cane before he approached Naruto, who flexed his fingers. Kansu tapped his cane onto Naruto's shoulder. What do you want now, Kansu? Kansu lowered his cane, humored. Nothing much, my good fellow. Let me give you a performance of my own abilities, how about it? Tapping his cane 3 times onto the surface beneath him and Naruto, Kansu manipulated time to repair the destroyed houses. Accessing his divine power, he removed the Impausa's mind control over the people of the town. Kansu also took a deeper look into Naruto's body. Humming in concealed curiosity, Kansu detected a mixture of spiritual and physical energy inside of Naruto. Intrigue danced in Kansu's gaze. This energy is much too familiar for me. Kansu knocked his cane twice on Naruto's shoulder. That mystical energy he has is chakra. A shinobi from the elemental nations, a dimension under the territory of the Shinto pantheon. Kansu grinned. How fascinating. Having solved the first piece of the puzzle that was Naruto Uzumaki, Kansu waited for Naruto's attention to be transferred to him. Gandering at Kansu, the Uzumaki rolled his shoulders. What's up? I think I've decided on our next course of action. Kansu grinned, teeth twinkling under the light of the stars. I shall be training you. Naruto raised his eyebrow, while Kansu suppressed the urge to chuckle. Don't worry, my aggressive friend. I am a good teacher. No. Naruto lifted a hand, head slanted at a confused angle. Why do I have to train all of a sudden? I think I'm strong enough. You misunderstand me. Kansu flicked a gander towards Naruto, amused. You're strong, yes, but you can become much stronger. Perhaps. The ring on Kansu's middle finger was tapped. You could even become the strongest if you mastered your abilities to the limit. Naruto and Kansu had left the town as they talked. The deity of the moon and time let loose a low-pitched hum. Do not forget that I can see the veil of time and creation, I can see your potential and strength. I can also see how strong you have been at specific points of time because of what my domain entails. And I saw something incredible. Naruto Uzumaki. Kansu murmured, eyes peering off into the distance. At some point in time, you were a monster of unnatural strength. Kansu disregarded the shock that lingered in Naruto's gaze. At some point in time, you had the strength to topple empires. That is one of the reasons I am helping you. Kansu elaborated. Your future is blocked off from me. I want to witness where you shall end up on this hellish road called life. Naruto smirked. Fine by me. He clenched his fists. This was the start of Naruto Uzumaki's tumultuous journey. Sunlight streamed down from the heavens and brightened the overall mood of an isolated town in the vast countrysides of America. A lone individual stepped out from the entrance of a forest, footsteps light. Ethan Nakamura raised a pale hand over his eye to shield it from the sunlight being targeted at the town he had been living in for the past few months, since the war between Olympus and Chrono's army. A low sigh of trepidation escaped Ethan's lips. Ethan entered his wooden home, withdrew an axe from the top of a table, left his little cabin, and returned to the forest to gather some wood to create a fire. Ethan's new lifestyle had been a somewhat humble one. After Percy Jackson had defeated Chronos and killed Luke Castellan, Ethan had vacated New York City in hopes of not being punished for his reproachful actions. Slithering through the countless oak trees amidst the numerous bushes within the forest, Ethan found himself at an empty clearing. Ethan curled his fingers around the handle of his axe, grunting. He cleaved his axe into the trunk of an enormous tree, toppling it down to the grass-covered surface and producing a loud thud of sound. Shouldering his axe, Ethan broke some wood off the tree. Ethan turned around to head back home, but then his natural senses from being a demigod flared at him in alarm. Gulping down the abundance of prudence that lurked in the pit of his stomach, Ethan discarded his axe before slipping a knife out from his sleeve. Ethan's ears were bombarded by the rustle of soft laughter. The idea of whoever had laughed at him being an agent dispatched by Olympus to capture and arrest him gnawed at the back of Ethan's mind. Black eyes squinted in suspicion, he called out. Who are you? Ethan heard the echo of soft laughter intensify in volume, growing louder and louder by the second. Clenching his hand onto the handle of his knife, Ethan growled in aggression. Reveal yourself at once. He became surprised at the sight of a hurricane comprised of leaves and bushes approaching him at an unnatural speed. Muscles tensed in concealed terror, Ethan took 7 vigilant steps backwards. Soil joined the hurricane of leaves and bushes 3 seconds later. Ethan grew less fearful, skulking towards the tornado of nature. He recoiled at the sound of a wondrous voice in his head. How sad. Who the hell are you? Ferocity graced the conceited depths of Ethan's mind. Are you a hunter from Olympus meant to kill me? A powerful burst of what Ethan assumed to be divine energy came out from the hurricane of nature and hurtled him into the fallen tree behind him. This tree exploded into shards of rotten wood. Taking on a much more humanoid appearance, the hurricane of nature morphed itself into the form of a woman. Green eyes glowed in eerie light. Locks of emerald hair shimmered a brilliant brown. She reached a tender hand out, a hand accentuated by its green-tinted fingernails. Collapsing to his knees in trepidation, Ethan held his knife out at a fearful angle. This presence. What is she? I find it so sad you must suffer in isolation. The beautiful voice spoke once more, gentle and sympathetic. But I also found it pathetic. My child failed in his quest of conquering Olympus, did he not? She laughed, teeth glinting beneath the sunlight. You were in his army. Hang on a second. Recognition flared in the black pits of Ethan's gaze. She called Kronos her child. It can't be. She's Mother Earth. Ethan raised his knife in the woman's direction, tone marred by an inflection of aggression. Why the hell is Mother Earth talking to me? Ah. A pleasant smile replaced the detached expression of amusement on Gia's hidden features. You do know my identity. How would I not realize who you are? Ethan gritted his teeth, staying on his knees and suppressing the urge to shiver. You're a primordial. The primordial of the earth was overjoyed by the mention of her title, tilting her head and widening her smile into an ominous grin. Ethan was unnerved, hand trembling as he dropped his knife to the ground. I cannot hold this form up for long. Gia spoke to Ethan, unbothered by the palpable amount of fear in his eyes. I want to make an offer. An offer? Lifting a suspicious eyebrow at the personification of the planet, Ethan said. Why would you want to make an offer to me? Gia shrugged, shoulders relaxed and untensed. Simple. She answered. You were a follower of Kronos and shared his ideals. I wouldn't say I shared Kronos' ideals. Ethan murmured. I joined him because he was the only one capable of changing the status quo. And how did that end up? Gia smirked, entertained. Percy Jackson was able to defeat him and his successor Luke Castellan. Yeah. Ethan's body trembled at the endless possibilities that Gia's smirk entailed and sighed. Percy Jackson killed Luke. The primordial of the earth stifled a chuckle behind her pristine hand. Doesn't it make you feel bitter? All your efforts were trampled on. What the hell can you offer me? Anger prickled beneath the surface of Ethan's face. I just want to survive, no matter what it takes. I doubt you will survive for long. Gia's emerald-hued gaze became much more intense. The wheel of fate has spun in a new direction. You say you wanted to change the status quo, correct? She asked Ethan, who nodded at her in affirmation. It has already changed. The fates have begun to weave a new tale for this pantheon. Gia explained, green eyes glowing brighter. One weaved in despair, hopelessness, and blood. Do you want to hide from this change, Ethan Nakamura? Gia mocked him, voice condescending and casual. Or will you join it? Ethan huffed in amusement, vicious wind ruffling his black hair. What the heck was that cliché speech? Fine, I'll accept that damn offer. Excellent. Reaching an arm out for a handshake, Gia covered the air between Ethan and her in green particles. Let me explain it. You are to work under one of my newest associates as his second in command. In return, I will empower your divine essence. Shock infected Ethan's posture before he accepted the handshake. Didn't Kronos also do this to Luke? Or at least something similar? Not really. Gia shook her head. My son imbued a small portion of his divine essence into Luke Castellan to increase the divine blood in his body. Your divine essence will be empowered by me. Gia let loose a low chuckle. That, in turn, will weaken your mortality more and more. You won't become a deity. Shooting down the idea that had formed in Ethan's head, Gia clarified. But your potential will be unmatched. I accept the conditions and rewards of your offer. Ethan grunted, an influx of divine energy coursing throughout his body. What was that? Gia waved her hand around and answered. That divine energy you felt was the divine contract the two of us made cementing itself. I will have someone pick you up at a later date. Gia's body crumbled in a hurricane of soil and leaves. Enjoy your upgrades. Ethan stumbled backwards, falling against the tree he had cut down and contemplating on everything that had just transpired. Burying his face into his pale palms, he mumbled. What the fuck was I thinking? Since had been away from the world of the divine for a long while, Ethan had no clue about what Gia was planning. It was the idea of changing the status quo that had Ethan accepting her sweet offer. A divine contract between them had already been created so Ethan would not be able to back out of this deal to return to the life of normality he had constructed for himself in the countryside of America. Sighing to himself in irritation at his brash decisions, Ethan gathered the wood he had collected earlier alongside his axe and returned to his cottage. He walked forward, slouching down into a wooden chair. He could feel the divinity within his system increase, while he could also feel the mortality within his body become less and less. Gia had granted him a powerful boon, one that increased his overall potential. Kronos and Luke both failed in changing the status quo of this world. Ethan scowled. I don't care what Gia says, I will create a new era. Having resigned himself to his new circumstances, Ethan was confused by the sound of light scratches originating from the entrance to his cabin. Peeking out the window, he scoffed. Monsters, huh? The town Ethan had moved to after the war between Olympus and Kronos' army had ended was an area deprived of monsters. Of course, this still meant the occasional monster would smell his presence. Grabbing his axe off of the table and pushing open the door to ensure that it smacked the snout of the hellhound loitering around his house, Ethan flexed his biceps in concentration. Let's test out my upgrades. Rolling backwards and crashing into the bushes, the hellhound flipped onto its feet and rushed towards Ethan. Axe raised in focus, Ethan cleaved his weapon into the hellhound's skull and ended it. A weakened shock wave was produced from the motion of Ethan slamming his axe down on the monstrous hound. Shocked, Ethan clenched a fist. Gia was right, this is an upgrade to my old strength. Under normal circumstances, Ethan would have been unable to destroy a monster without some difficulty. This time was different. This time he had obliterated the hellhound in one single strike of the axe. Incredible. Ethan flexed his fingers and biceps for a second time. I think this newfound strength of mine will help me bring a new era. Glaring at the golden dust from the creature he had destroyed moments prior to gaining his new resolve, Ethan spat out a granule of saliva in derision and mockery. He turned around, entering his home. Ethan was not sure about what the personification of the earth was scheming, but that was no longer his problem. Having found his determination, Ethan seated himself on a chair close to the fireplace. Hansu and Naruto Uzumaki were nestled in the somewhat small room they had rented out for the week in a humble inn. A fresh cup of tea and a plate of chocolate cake had been placed on a wooden table. Enjoying the relaxed silence in the atmosphere of the room, Kansu sipped his delectable tea and glanced at an unconscious Naruto, who had completed his training in wind-styled ninjutsu 2 hours earlier. Summoning an argent knife into his pristine hand and cutting his chocolate cake into 2 pieces, Kansu indulged himself by devouring one. Wiping a napkin against his chocolate-smeared lips, he hummed, I must say. Kansu spoke aloud to no one in particular, increasing the pitch of his melodic hum. This inn has some fine tea and cake. Sipping more of the fresh tea in his cup, Kansu found himself a little bothered when he detected the presence of a powerful entity 300 miles from the town where the inn was located. Shock and fascination swirled in the silver depths of Kansu's endless gaze of mysteries as he conjured a white fedora onto his head. Grabbing his cane off the table, Kansu exited the inn and smiled. My. Kansu whispered to himself, slicing his cane in a vertical motion and humming once more. What a strong presence. Kansu had sensed and discerned the presence of the Greek personification of the planet and grinned, delight evident in his straightened posture and eyes. I should pay her a little visit, eh? An average-sized blue portal was constructed in front of Kansu. Walking into it and reaching an empty clearing, Kansu released 3 pulses of divine power to attract Gia's attention and interest. Soil dug itself out from the grass-covered surface around Kansu, coalescing itself into a pair of verdant eyes that radiated unadulterated malice, warmth, power, and intelligence. Kansu raised a polite hand. An Egyptian deity has called for my attention. Kansu's head was inundated by the gentle inflection of the voice. How interesting. My apologies for calling you out so late. Kansu twisted his lips into the most insane grin imaginable. I wanted to meet you, Gia. The Egyptian god of the moon and time distorted his voice. Or would you like me to call you by your other titles such as Mother Earth? I was not aware that a member of the Egyptian pantheon would be interested in Greek affairs. Oh please. Kansu widened his silver eyes, tilting his head at an inhuman degree. The Greek pantheon is always so entertaining. Why have you come to speak to me? The verdant eyes in front of Kansu blinked, curious. Do hurry, I will soon fall back asleep. Why wouldn't I want to speak to you? Kansu laughed, eyes widened even more in fascination. This new prophecy is all about you. Indeed it is. Gia's statement of concurrence held a controlled amount of amusement. Did you just want to have a normal chat? Peering into the veil of time and creation to take a deeper look into Gia's presence, Kansu shrugged. I wanted to confirm something. Kansu rolled one of his shoulders. Gia had returned to her century-long slumber as the soil that formed her green eyes faded into nothing. My theory was correct. Kansu opened himself a portal. According to the veil of time, Gia is somehow linked to Naruto's lost identity. November 20, 2009. Naruto walked across the asphalted road of the enormous town in the hinterlands of America, calloused hands slipped into his pockets. Vermilion eyes glowed beneath the influence of the sunlight. Hansu had disappeared without a trace for the umpteenth time after they had completed his training in the arts of chakra for the day. Sliding into an alleyway, Naruto performed an unfamiliar hand sign. Materializing into existence next to its summoner, the shadow clone folded its arm and leaned itself against the wall of the alleyway. Naruto poked its left cheek, checking out its facial features. It really is identical to me. The shadow clone jutsu was the perfect tool to use in battle because of the number of clones he could create at once. Naruto dispelled the clone, feeling its memories of having its cheek poke deluge his mind. Shaking his head at the memory and stepping out of the alleyway, Naruto saw a bookshop in the distance. Crimson eyes squinted in intrigue, Naruto disappeared in an indiscernible flash of speed. Appearing at the end of the street where the bookshop was located, Naruto pushed the entrance to the establishment open. A few other people were in the store, checking out the books available to them. Naruto walked deeper into the store until he had retrieved a book about Shinto mythology. For some inexplicable reason, Naruto was drawn towards this pantheon in particular. He bought this book. Leaving the bookshop behind him, Naruto approached the inn and slipped into the room that he had rented out for the week. Kansu was still out somewhere, so Naruto decided to read his latest purchase. The book was rather well written. Each section had a different tale about the Shinto pantheon and its different types of deities. On the 20th page of the book, Naruto heard the door to the room open. Kansu had reappeared, a plastic cup of coffee in his pale hand and a magazine about the newest fashion trends in the other. A preternatural grin had graced his face. Interested in the Shinto pantheon, eh? I guess. Naruto shrugged at the Egyptian deity, red eyes analyzing the illustrations on the pages of his book. This book is interesting. I would much prefer to read about the myths mortals speak about me. Kansu drank his coffee. Do you think I'm a popular individual? Snorting, Naruto answered. I bet if you went to school as a student, you'd be the most bullied one there. You would not be popular at all. That sharp tongue of yours wounds me, my aggressive fellow. Kansu reclined on a leather-padded chair. You have a foul mouth. Whatever. Naruto rolled his vermilion eyes, smirking for the briefest of seconds. Are you sure you can't restore my memories for me? Oh? Somewhat surprised by the change in the topic of their conversation, Kansu replied. No, my friend, I'm afraid I cannot. You are an unregistered existence. An immaculate finger was pointed in Naruto's direction. Someone erased from reality. Lowering his pristine finger and sipping more of his coffee, Kansu said. An unregistered existence is also erased from history and fate. You can tell I'm an unregistered existence because you can see into the veil of time and creation, right? Can I look into the veil by chance? Naruto, my good fellow. Humor burst forth from Kansu's lips in the form of a deep chuckle. It is impossible for you to look into the veil. What a real pain in the ass. Naruto murmured, traces of anger lingering in his low voice. Can you at least let me try to see the veil? I suppose I could let you see into the veil. But be warned, the veil of time and creation is only to be seen by deities of those two domains. But answer this question. Kansu leaned forward on his chair, silver eyes as glowing a bright azure. Why do you want to look into the veil? Naruto was unbothered by the palpable intensity in Kansu's tone. I was hoping there was a chance that the veil could help me somehow. The good enough answer, my friend. Kansu gestured another finger towards Naruto's head. I, a deity of time, give you access to the veil. Particles of a sinister blue rolled off of the tip of Kansu's finger, flooding Naruto's vision. Incomprehensible flashes of white light filled Naruto's mind before he slouched downwards into his bed, silent. Kansu lowered his finger, reclined deeper into his chair, rocked back and forth, and noticed how Naruto's crimson eyes had become blue. Amazement coated Kansu's tongue. He can see into the veil. An astral projection of Naruto had been transported into a pitch-black dimension, while the original Naruto remained on the bed in the inn. Naruto flexed his transparent fingers, a grin present on his face. Naruto shook his head to remind himself of his ongoing task and ventured deeper into the realm of absolute nothingness. Darkness stretched on for miles in this dimension. He then stopped in his tracks. Amongst the pure darkness of the realm, Naruto spotted a lone mirror in the distance and approached it in blatant curiosity. Naruto pressed a calloused hand into the mirror. He was surprised to see his lack of reflection in the mirror before it exploded into a million shards of shattered glass. These shards of glass floated upwards into the sky of the realm and turned into stars. From the nothingness of the realm, two bright eyes of cosmic depth gazed at him without a shred of emotion. Naruto touched his head at the words that formed in his mind. You must find Percy Jackson. The astral projection of Naruto stumbled backwards, crashing into the surface of the realm before the two eyes of cosmic understanding glinted an ominous black and white. Naruto's astral projection faded. Blinking his crimson eyes open in a bout of unadulterated confusion and shock, Naruto rolled off of his bed and let out an annoyed groan. Kansu rose from his rocking chair, summoning his silver cane. What the hell happened? A hoarse rasp wrenched itself out from Naruto's mouth. I saw a mirror, these two eyes, and heard a voice. Oh? Kansu raised a fascinated eyebrow, tapped a finger onto the top of his cane, and murmured. And what did this voice tell you? I have to find someone. Naruto rubbed the back of his head in deep thought. The damn voice told me that I must find Percy Jackson. Recognition flickered within the silver pits of Kansu's indescribable gaze. You must find someone called Percy Jackson. How strange. I thought you told me it was impossible for me to look into the veil. Naruto scowled, cracking his stiff neck. How was I able to see into it? Hansu picked up his plastic cup of coffee. I'm not sure, my red-eyed fellow. You must be the first mortal who has glimpsed the veil of time. Rolling his stiffened shoulders and climbing onto his bed, Naruto grunted. Whatever, enough about that. But who is Percy Jackson? A rather popular individual in the Greek pantheon as of late. Kansu answered, drinking more of his coffee. He defeated the Titan of Time. Chronos, right. Naruto scratched his chin, laying down on the soft mattress of his bed. Huh, he must be a pretty powerful person then. Indeed. Kansu nodded in agreement, shaking the coffee in his plastic cup. He also killed Luke Castellan, Chronos' successor. Why does the Veil of Time and Creation want me to find him? Naruto asked, hands crossed behind his head. Did I somehow know him? Maybe. Kansu saw the small flashes of recognition that flitted across Naruto's red gaze before they were snuffed out. I can't say. Returning to his earlier position on his chair and taking another sip of his coffee, Kansu said. Let us discuss what you shall do next. I want to practice more ninjutsu and taijutsu. Naruto clenched a fist, eyes closed in boredom. I also want to learn how to use senjutsu. You're interested in senjutsu? Kansu feigned shame. I did tell you about senjutsu, yes, but I'm afraid I'm unable to teach it to you. Really? Naruto was unimpressed, sighing in unconcealed annoyance. Oh, well. I guess I'll practice my other skills then. Excellent. Smiling, Kansu finished off the last vestiges of coffee in his plastic cup. Come along, my good fellow, it's time for you to train. November 25, 2009. Naruto pulled out a kunai from his sleeve, imbued enormous amounts of wind-natured chakra into its tip, and slashed through the multiple orbs of silver light being directed straight towards his upper torso. From a safe distance, Kansu watched Naruto destroy his magical constructs into nothing without a visible ounce of difficulty. Lifting his cane, Kansu shot bullets of mana in Naruto's direction. He lowered his kunai, channeled chakra throughout his arm, punched the bullets of mana into blue-tinted particles, and vanished in a vicious burst of unmatched speed. Kansu constructed an argent barricade. The heel of Naruto's foot was buried into the silver barricade of mana. Kansu dispelled his barrier, using the end of his cane to fend off the nastiest of right hooks imaginable from his crimson-eyed companion. Flipping backwards to establish an enormous amount of distance between himself and Kansu, Naruto sprinted forward in an untraceable blur of movement. Kansu was roundhouse kicked. Despite holding back most of his true power and skill in this spar against Naruto, Kansu found himself impressed by Naruto's raw strength and speed. His cane blocked off a chakra-enhanced punch. Naruto retracted his arm, appearing behind Kansu and drilling his chakra-empowered knuckles into the back of Kansu's head. Rolling downwards, Kansu chuckled as a clawed hand grabbed his neck. Throwing Kansu towards the bushes within the clearing they had unearthed for their spear, Naruto approached him at inhuman speeds. Crimson bubbles of chakra coalesced around Naruto's muscled arm. Kansu landed on the heels of his feet, twirled his cane in a circular motion, created a barricade, and warded off Naruto's powerful blow. Naruto grunted, more and more crimson chakra surrounding his arm. He grinned in intrigue at the sight of the vermilion layer of chakra coated over Naruto's arm until he felt the barricade he had created being destroyed. Arm lashed out, Naruto struck Kansu in the nose. Flying across the cold air of the clearing and crashing into a multitude of ancient trees, Kansu healed his shattered nose. Delirious amounts of pleasure surfaced on his face. Such incredible power and ferocity. Rising to his feet and conjuring another cane into his pale hand, Kansu repaired the damage Naruto had caused to the area. Approaching Kansu, Naruto slanted his head. You good, Kansu? I'm more than good, my crimson-eyed fellow. Kansu's voice became distorted for a brief minute. You truly are a monstrous boy. Naruto picked at the entrance of his ear in purposeful disinterest. The only monstrous thing about me is how bored I'm feeling right now. An amused smile tugged at the corners of Kansu's lips. How could you be bored after such a brilliant battle, my friend? I'm feeling great. I still have no clue where the hell that red chakra comes from. Naruto grouched. It feels natural and unnatural to me for some reason. That's because that red chakra of yours comes from another source. In his mind, Kansu released a low chuckle. Ignore that feeling for now. Your taijutsu in this spar was impeccable in my opinion. Kansu said. I'm glad you also used your wind-natured chakra in this spar. Though, I will look into teaching you more ninjutsu. Turning around, Kansu disappeared into the bushes of the area. Come along now. Rolling his crimson eyes in amusement, Naruto followed Kansu from behind and slid his coarse hands into his pockets. Stepping onto the trail within the forest, Kansu spoke up. Have you looked into him? Jolting himself out from his bored stupor, Naruto lifted a confused eyebrow. Looked into Percy Jackson? Can't say I have. Kansu tapped his cane against the soil of the path. I recommend that you look into his whereabouts. The veil did tell you to find him. I'll focus on my training for the moment. Naruto crossed his arms in contemplation. Then I'll look into people connected to my past. Very well. Footfalls silent and unbothered, Kansu smiled. The wheel of destiny is spinning in a new direction once again, isn't it? Taking a glance at the crimson-eyed individual behind him, Kansu pondered. Naruto Uzumaki, how shall you fare on this journey? November 30, 2009. Ethan was nestled into the blankets of his bed, reading one of the comic books he had purchased from the town he had moved to. This peaceful session of reading was interrupted by a knock on the door. Dragging himself out from his comfortable bed and putting on his eye patch, Ethan opened the entrance to his little cottage. A familiar man stood in front of him, body decorated by an expensive suit. Epimetheus. Ethan snarled at the titan of afterthought, black eye shrunken in hidden fear. I thought you were still in Tartarus. Dia had Tartarus reform me. Epimetheus answered. Though, I must say, I didn't expect to run into one of Chrono's old lackeys. Pale fingers curled around the handle of the door in rage. Ethan sneered. I heard 2 Roman demigods beat you in the labyrinth. Indeed, they did. Epimetheus smiled without a hint of shame or care. But I have grown much more formidable and stronger since then. Damn it. Teeth gritted, Ethan trembled. I didn't expect Gia to have recruited one of Chrono's titans to her campaign. What should I do? Epimetheus touched Ethan on the shoulder. Do not forget you have tied yourself to Gia through a divine contract. There is no escape. Divine contracts were contracts created by a divine entity and mortal. They were unbreakable because chaos itself served as a witness to these types of contracts. Ethan grunted. Yeah, I know. Gia told me that she wanted you as my second in command. Epimetheus remarked. I can see how she upgraded your power. Snapping his fingers and conjuring a portal behind Ethan, the titan of afterthought chuckled. I can tell you'll be a useful asset for Gia. November 30, 2009. Kansu and Naruto were seated at the back of a somewhat crowded bus. An illusion had been set over the mortals by Kansu to keep them quiet. Relishing the silence in the air, Kansu felt content. Silver eyes of perpetual mystery and depth glanced towards Naruto, who had his knuckles propped beneath his chin. Naruto had his red eyes squinted, looking at the different sights that the bus crossed. In this moment of endless peace and silence, Kansu pondered about the fact that the Veil of Time and Creation had told Naruto to locate Percy Jackson, a famous member of the Greek pantheon. Snapping his head over to Naruto and accessing the Veil of Time and Creation, Kansu peered into Naruto's being itself. Once again, words flashed in his head. A familiar migraine buried itself into Kansu's head. Using his chronokinesis to heal his headache, Kansu touched his chin. Naruto leaned back in his seat on the bus, eyes glued to what was outside. The more I look into his soul, the more resistance I receive in return. Kansu murmured in his mind. I also cannot decipher those words. Whoever sealed this boy into that artificial realm and stole his memories must be a powerful creature. Kansu tapped his ring. It wasn't Gia. He had accessed the Veil of Time and Creation to look into Gia's presence and had seen a connection between herself and the realm Naruto had been sealed into. Kansu rotated the ring on his finger. The Veil of Time and Creation had also told him that Gia was not the one who had created the realm, though. Gia had been the one who had placed all those monsters in the dimension Naruto was trapped in. Someone else had constructed the realm and sealed Naruto into it, while Gia had provided the monsters designed to track down Naruto and end his life. Kansu hummed. Who made that artificial realm? Naruto was unaware of the deep contemplations Kansu was experiencing at the moment and was maintaining his gaze on the outside world. The bus drove across the roads of the country. Naruto sighed. I'm exhausted. The stench of blood and rotten flesh polluted the cold atmosphere of an abandoned village. Ethan Nakamura stood in the middle of the war-torn area. Corpses of the townsfolk littered the asphalted ground. A somewhat twisted sense of dull satisfaction slithered in the depths of Ethan's stomach at the sight of the numerous dead bodies around him. Tapping the handle of his blade, he chuckled. That was fun. Epimetheus had been the one who insisted on Ethan testing out the new abilities Gia had granted him from the effects of their divine contract on whatever town of mortals he could find. Placing his hood over his head to conceal his true identity, Ethan ventured off in the direction of the town's entrance. The sound of rapid footfalls alerted Ethan of the presence of someone else in the town. Ethan concealed himself in an isolated alleyway, watching from the shadows of the unlit sector as Epimetheus appeared from the corner of the street. Ethan sighed in relief, exiting the alley and scowling. Why the hell are you following me? Ethan folded his arms, irritated. You were the one who told me to come to this town for some privacy. Epimetheus shook his head in blatant amusement. Come now, my dear Ethan. I wanted to see the bloodbath you caused in this town. Picking one of the corpses into a wooden wall, Epimetheus said. These mortals will be eradicated once Gia reclaims her full power. You do realize I am a mortal myself? Ethan snorted. Are you implying that Gia will eradicate me alongside all these humans? Of course not, my good lad. Epimetheus tittered, gasping in feigned shock. You are half divine, so you will have a spot in the new year. Unimpressed by Epimetheus's fake sincerity, Ethan rolled his black eye. I don't really care about what happens to me after all of this. Oh? Epimetheus raised an interested eyebrow. Don't tell me you've become suicidal because of the stress of everything that will happen. Just shut the hell up, would you? Ethan deepened his annoyed scowl. You have got to learn how to keep that damn mouth closed. The calloused hand tapped Ethan on the shoulder. Epimetheus's crimson eyes glowed in the shadows. Do not presume you can insult me. Batting Epimetheus's hand off of his shoulder, Ethan sneered. You think I'm scared of you? Please, I've fought much stronger foes. Somehow I doubt your claims of grandeur. Epimetheus answered. But do not forget who is the leader and who is the subordinate. I'm second in command, Dumbus. Ethan snarled in frustration, grinding his teeth together. Dia herself gave me that stupid title. Clicking his tongue in disapproval, Epimetheus replied. Enough arguing about such tasteless topics. It's time I took you somewhere. Ethan stepped out of the crimson portal Epimetheus had conjured and entered a room filled by a countless number of unique weapons. Epimetheus stood behind him, dispelling the portal and humming. An impressive selection of weapons, isn't it? The Titan of Forethought asked aloud. These were crafted by a few of Gia's top blacksmiths. Picking up one of the golden blades from the wooden table in front of him, Epimetheus channeled mana throughout its metallic body. He raised the blade high into the air. This blade is truly a masterpiece. It has the ability to strike someone once and make them unconscious. Epimetheus explained. A fine weapon in my opinion. Sounds kind of boring to me. Ethan was less easy to impress. I'm guessing you took me to this place to retrieve a weapon for myself. Shouldering the blade, Epimetheus smiled. Aren't you a perceptive one? Indeed, Gia instructed me to let you pick out a weapon. Ethan ignored the inflection of condescension in Epimetheus's tone, peering down at the assortment of weapons on the wooden table. Noticing an axe, Ethan traced his fingers across its bronze handle. Sparks of mana were produced from the handle of the axe, carving small lacerations into the ends of Ethan's pale fingers. Ethan touched his palm flat on the rest of the axe, feeling out its material and texture. Taking the axe from the table and into his hand, Ethan held it at an appropriate angle fit for such a powerful weapon. Epimetheus scratched his chin. I suppose you would pick that, wouldn't you? What ability does this axe have? Ethan admired the size and mobility of his latest weapon. I think this will be the perfect weapon for me. It provides its user the ability to look into the soul and mind of someone. Epimetheus said. And corrode them in minutes. Naruto Uzumaki had the nastiest of bruises imaginable plastered across his whiskered cheeks. On the ground next to him, one of his clones was rolling around and laughing at the hilarity of his injuries. Grunting in annoyance at the incessant sound of his clone's laughter, Naruto dissipated his duplicate and coated his face in a layer of crimson chakra to heal the wounds painted onto his unamused face. Once the bruises on his cheeks were healed, Naruto fell flat on his back onto the grass-covered surface of the meadow around him. His shadow clone and him had been sparring for the last 3 hours. Rising from his comfortable position on the ground of the meadow, Naruto spotted the outline of a tuxedo-adorned individual in the distance. Kansu approached him, a plastic cup of tea in his hand. What an excellent battle to watch. Kansu cheered, lips upturned into a convoluted smile. Your battle instincts have improved, my friend. Whatever. Naruto returned to his position on the ground, relaxed and bored. That stupid clone hit me hard enough to give me bruises. Your clone is an identical version of yourself. Kansu responded. That means you gave yourself those earlier bruises on your cheeks. Let the two of us move on to more important matters. Kansu said, sipping the tea in his plastic cup. What are your goals right now? Having crossed his hands behind his head, Naruto scowled. No clue. He murmured. I think I should start to research about someone. Good idea. Kansu spoke in agreement. The veil of time and creation itself told you to find him. He must be linked to your past. But how the hell am I supposed to find out clues about where Percy Jackson is? Naruto grunted, annoyed and confused. Got any ideas? Silver eyes scrunched up in amusement, Kansu replied. Of course I have an idea, my aggressive fellow. Who do you think I am? The Dumbus who won't leave me alone. Sarcasm simmered at the end of Naruto's foul-tipped tongue. So, what the heck is your idea? It's about time I introduced you to an old friend of mine. Kansu's teeth glowed beneath the sunlight. He's a rather antisocial man. You have friends? Naruto raised a baffled eyebrow, maintaining his facade of unmatched disbelief. Who would want to be your friend? Aren't we friends, my red-eyed companion? Kansu tilted his head at a somewhat unnatural and eerie angle. Now. No more dilly-dallying. Summoning his silver cane into his pristine hand and slashing it in a horizontal motion across the warm air, Kansu realized he was unable to open a portal to the underworld. He blinked. Isn't this a little odd? Naruto kept his eyebrow raised in confusion. What's wrong? You look more excited than the time I punched you right in the nose. My apologies. Kansu shrunk his manic grin of excitement into a small smirk of sheer pleasure. My friend won't be helping us. Isn't that a damn shame? Naruto slouched deeper into the ground of the meadow, scratching his yellow hair. What's the plan now, then? Humming a melodic tune to himself in contemplation, Kansu said. I propose we return to our journey of traveling across the countryside. I don't think that's gonna help me find Percy Jackson, though. Naruto pointed out. You told me to listen to the Veil of Time and Creation. We can return to that crucial topic later. Kansu's small smirk stayed on his compassed features. Let us buy some bus tickets for the road. Naruto and Kansu found themselves in the middle of nowhere after the bus they had been on dropped them off at an isolated area. Smelling the fresh air, Kansu adjusted the white fedora on his head. The landscape was a scenic one, fields extended out across the countryside for uncountable miles. Forests surrounded the areas. Naruto slipped his calloused hands into his pockets, eyes closed. This unadulterated sensation of nature was somehow familiar to Naruto, who opened his blue eyes to scope out his immediate vicinity. Kansu admired the abundance of nature. What an incredible sight. An absent-minded nod of acknowledgement from Naruto had Kansu satisfied enough to let the prolonged silence between them linger. Naruto stepped down the stone-constructed path, footfalls gentle. They meandered forth on the stone-forged path ahead of them. Kansu stayed behind Naruto to appreciate the beauty of the area more. Naruto halted, noticing a wooden sign bolted into the ground. Upping his chin in a small bout of fascination, Kansu teleported himself in front of the sign and read the words inscribed into its wood. Naruto was confused. Why are you interested in that stupid sign? No particular reason, my good fellow. Kansu returned to his usual demeanor of mysterious nature. There is a town up ahead of us. Nice. Naruto rolled his stiffened shoulders. I hope this town has some sort of inn. I'm exhausted from that journey we took here. You can rest later. Kansu turned around, descending the stone-forged stairs of the path they were on. Come along now. The crimson portal materialized itself into the cold atmosphere of a sequestered clearing in the countryside. Epimetheus and Ethan stepped out from it, respective weapons held in their coarse hands. Dispelling the portal behind him, Epimetheus snapped his vermilion gaze towards Ethan and watched him twirl the axe in his pale hand. Ethan lowered the formidable weapon. Where the hell are we, huh? The middle of nowhere. Epimetheus said, poised and level-headed. There are towns full of mortals you can test your new weapon on. Maybe later. Ethan chuckled to himself, stroking one of his fingers across the smooth-surfaced handle of his axe. Do you want to spar? Lifting an unbothered eyebrow down at the tenacious demigod, Epimetheus replied. I suppose I could battle you for a little while. The two of them created a good amount of distance from the other. Epimetheus bulged his muscles in anticipation, while Ethan entered the stance of an experienced martial artist. They then disappeared. The calamitous shock wave was produced when the head of Ethan's axe collided into the end of Epimetheus's mana-empowered spear. Having flipped backwards, Ethan landed on the heels of his feet. Epimetheus snapped his fingers, summoning a multitude of mana-constructed bullets in the air around Ethan. Mana pulsed out from Ethan's system, spreading itself throughout the bronze axe. In the cataclysmic war between Olympus and Chronos' monstrous army, Ethan had been unable to utilize mana in any shape or form. Epimetheus had taught him the basics of mana enhancement. Slashing his axe into the numerous bullets of mana being directed at his head, Ethan vanished in an impressive burst of inhuman speed. Epimetheus raised his palm to block off a slice from Ethan's axe. An explosion of magical power was created from the exchange of physical and mana-enhanced attacks. Epimetheus lunged forward, grabbing Ethan by the shoulder and hurtling him down into the grass. Chunks of soil erupted forth from the ground beneath the two of them. Ethan coughed out enormous globs of blood from his pained lips. Epimetheus released Ethan's shoulder, taking a single step back. Dragging himself to his knees and climbing out from the small crater he had been buried into, Ethan gritted his teeth in pain. Epimetheus taunted him, amused. Do not disappoint me, Ethan. Epimetheus became a little amused as Ethan channeled more mana throughout the entirety of his axe. Glaring at the titan of afterthought, Ethan charged at him. Swinging his axe low, Ethan grunted in focus. Posture untensed and relaxed, Epimetheus caught the tip of the axe. More and more mana leaked out from inside of Ethan's body to enhance his weapon. Epimetheus kicked him in the abdomen. Ethan was launched into a pile of bushes, hacking out harsh coughs of pain from the cavern of his mouth. A blood-stained grin of scorn marred Ethan's pale features. I really stand no real chance in a fight. Memories of Alabaster C. Torrington and Luke Castellan burrowed themselves out from the deepest recesses of Ethan's mind. He remembered how much power these two individuals had wielded. In the end, Percy Jackson had killed Luke and Leo Valdez had defeated Alabaster. Ethan screwed his black eye shut in frustration. It was such a shame that the two of them had been killed and captured. The last that Ethan had heard from his old sources, Alabaster had been spared and banished from the Pantheon. Sighing, Ethan slinked out from the pile of bushes he was in before he stood up to his feet. You didn't even try to use the ability your axe possesses. Epimetheus shook his head. What was the point of that spar then? I doubt the axe's ability would work on you. Ethan responded, annoyed. I wanted to compare my strength to yours in our spar. What a foolish idea. Epimetheus laughed, amusement plastered across his handsome face. You are nothing compared to me. Jaw clenched in suppressed outrage, Ethan snarled. That was the entire point of the spar, to understand our difference in power. You are a confident individual. Epimetheus adopted a demeanor of unadulterated indifference. But do not overestimate yourself, Ethan. Ethan scoffed, shouldering his axe. I'll be able to grasp the true essence of mana at some point like Luke and Alabaster did. I forgot about those two. Epimetheus admitted. Luke Castellan and Alabaster Torrington were both prodigies in the arts of magic, indeed. I was the one who taught Luke the spell named Mana Burst. Epimetheus said. He was able to master it in less than an hour. Mana Burst, huh? Ethan murmured to himself in fascination. What are the chances you could teach me that type of spell, Epimetheus? Concealing his amusement behind an expression of contemplation, Epimetheus mused. Dia did tell me to help this boy grow stronger. December 10, 2009. It had been a short 5 days since Naruto and Kansu had reached this well-maintained town out in the hinterlands of the country. Naruto rested on the bed in the room of a humble inn, azure eyes closed. Kansu was seated on a leather-padded sofa in the corner of the room, a fantasy-based novel in his pristine hand. Naruto opened his eyes, changing his uncomfortable position on the mattress of the bed. Craving a good plate of chocolate cake at this moment, Kansu scattered his book into blue particles and vanished. Naruto tossed and turned in his slumber, gritting his teeth and then clenching his fists. Deep into the pit of Naruto's mind, distorted images filled his head. These images were familiar and unfamiliar to him at the same time. He lurched out of his bed, falling onto the carpeted floor of the room. Body soaked in sweat from the distorted images in his dreams, Naruto cracked his neck to alleviate the tension spread throughout himself. Staying on the carpet, Naruto touched a calloused palm onto his face. What the hell were those incomprehensible images in his head? They were so familiar to him and also foreign to him. Deciding not to ponder on these questions for too long, Naruto got off the floor and sighed. Ansu had disappeared, but this had become a usual occurrence. Slipping into a much more suitable outfit, Naruto adjusted the sunglasses he had bought from a shop in the area 2 days ago. Having checked out his reflection in the mirror ingrained into the wall of the room, Naruto stretched out his limbs and felt them pop. Exiting the inn, he found himself on one of the local paths in the quaint town. According to the townsfolk in the map he had bought from a store, there was a village 11 miles from the one he was at. Keen on exploring the surrounding area, Naruto reached the exit of the town. Hand slipped into his pockets and head tilted in boredom, Naruto noticed it had become dusk before he disappeared in a distortion. Rushing across the countryside, Naruto increased his overall speed. Stopping in his tracks once he had gotten to the entrance of the village, Naruto widened his blue eyes at the rancid scent of blood that filled his nose. Morbid curiosity danced on his whiskered features. Stepping into the town and spotting a number of corpses on the asphalted paths, Naruto heard a low groan of pained confusion from a man who looked to be in his 20s. His eyes were glazed in horror. Approaching the man and kneeling down next to him, Naruto tapped him on the shoulder to catch his attention. Blinking several times, the man jostled and shouted. That monster killed everyone here. An onslaught of nonsensical questions streamed out from the man's blood-smeared and bruised lips. Naruto was baffled. Had this man also lost his memories somehow? Naruto knocked the villager out. Venturing deeper and deeper into the corpse-infested streets of this village, Naruto realized that the man was the only one left alive. Naruto decided to return to the area where he had left this villager. Soaked in a puddle of his own blood from his strenuous wounds, the man passed on to the next world. Naruto clenched his fist for a brief second, head slanted in contemplation at his next course of action. Sapphire particles swirled around in the air. Kansu appeared next to Naruto, sipping coffee from the plastic cup in his hand. Gazing at the corpse on the concrete, he grinned. So this is what you were up to. It wasn't me who did this. Naruto glanced at the corpse. I came to this town and everyone else was already dead except for this man. He died after a while. Naruto said. He also was telling me about some type of monster who had killed everyone except for him. Silver eyes glowed blue and stared at the corpses in the town. The veil tells me the villagers' souls and minds were corroded to death. Corroded to death. Naruto took a second glance at the corpse of the man. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I don't really get it. Mortals have souls and minds. Kansu shrugged. If the mind and soul are corroded at the same time, it leaves no chance of them surviving. It would be ineffective against monsters, deities, and demigods. Kansu chuckled. Since their souls and minds are so much stronger. Damn. Naruto grouched, tone curious and prudent. Would this corrosion work on my mind and soul since I'm immortal, then? No clue. Kansu was amused. I have no clue how the corrosion of the soul and mind would work on someone in possession of chakra. Ethan and Epimetheus had returned to their hideout, a series of warehouses located in the middle of nowhere. Different types of monsters greeted the leader and their second-in-command. Having stepped into Epimetheus's somewhat humble office, Ethan seated himself down onto a wooden chair in front of a desk. Epimetheus snapped his fingers to create a mana-constructed orb. Noticing the confusion plastered on Ethan's face, Epimetheus said, "I set up some runes that would let me monitor all of these towns." Setting the mana-constructed orb down onto his desk, Epimetheus peered into it and Ethan mimicked him. They were perplexed to see two new individuals in the town they had slaughtered an hour ago. The man who wore a white fedora on his head turned in the direction of where Epimetheus had left the runes. Epimetheus raised an eyebrow as the man flicked the silver cane in his hand forward. A slow blink from Epimetheus had Ethan checking on the mana-constructed orb on the desk until it sputtered out and dissolved. Epimetheus spoke. "Whoever that was somehow erased my runes." Scowling at the titan of afterthought, Ethan responded. "Should we head back and confront those two? They could be a possible threat." "That man who erased my runes." Epimetheus intertwined his fingers. "I could feel traces of divinity from him but nothing from that boy. Who the hell were those two?" Derision reeked from Ethan's voice. "I think we should return to that village to confront them." "How about it?" "No." Epimetheus separated his fingers from each other, leaning back into his chair and smiling. "I have more important issues to handle. Also." Crimson eyes closed in amusement, Epimetheus chuckled. "I have a feeling we shall be running into those two sooner or later." December 15, 2009. A ferocious pack of hellhounds surrounded Naruto. An insane amount of endless hunger was evident in their crimson gazes. Saliva streamed out from their canines as they clicked their teeth and barked. Naruto adjusted the sunglasses on his whiskered face, rolling his shoulders and bouncing on the balls of his feet for 3 seconds. Head canted at a nonchalant angle, he stared at the monsters. According to Kansu and the Veil of Time and Creation, Naruto wasn't even close to regaining his true power and skill. One of the hellhounds lunged at Naruto, opening its maw wide to eat his head. Chakra bubbled out from his system and enhanced his knuckles. Striking a hellhound in the snout, Naruto propelled it backwards. Slamming his elbow into a second hellhound, the Uzumaki sighed. "I'm really not in the mood to waste any time." The hellhound was buried into a pile of bushes by Naruto, who cracked his neck to get his blood pumping. Rushing at the crowd of insane monsters, Naruto defeated them in less than 40 seconds. Sprinkles of golden dust laid on the grass-covered ground of where the battle had taken place. Calloused hands slid into his pockets, Naruto returned to the main path of the area and yawned a little. Ansu had his cane planted against the ground of the path. Spotting Naruto and tapping a finger onto his cane, he spoke. "You have flourished well under my training, my vermilion-eyed companion." "I guess." Shrugging, Naruto said. "I'm also guessing that you've decided on our next course of action. So, what the hell is it?" "I will be leaving you alone for a short while." Kansu stretched his lips out into an unabashed grin. "You'll be on your own for now at least." "Huh?" Naruto scoffed, pointing a finger at his face in irritation. "What the heck am I supposed to do then? How long will you be gone?" "Much longer than you'd expect." Kansu replied. "Some small issues have arisen in my pantheon that I am obligated to take care of." Slouching his shoulders, Naruto grunted. "Whatever. But could you at least leave me some resources or supplies when I hit the road? Your backpack will refill itself whenever you run out of money." Kansu watched Naruto strap his backpack onto his shoulders and disappear down the path they were on. Rotating the ring on his index finger, he grinned in delight. The wheel of fate has spun once again. The bus Naruto had entered was filled by countless people. Deciding to check out the latest items Kansu had placed into his backpack, Naruto looked at the wallet, the red ring, and the silver coin in the bag. Crimson eyes squinted in confusion, Naruto lowered his bag onto the surface of the bus and leaned his head back into his seat. Sounds of conversation drifted into one ear and drifted out of the other one. Having glanced out of the window, Naruto stared at the area as the bus drove by and closed his eyes for the briefest of seconds. Opening them, Naruto slumped deeper into his seat and relaxed his muscles. What would be his next course of action since Kansu had left him? Mulling over these types of thoughts in his head, Naruto wished for some silence in the air instead of the loud voices that filled his ears. He had become much more powerful after Kansu had unsealed him from the artificial dimension he had been sealed into. Flexing his clawed fingers and gazing at his coarse hand, Naruto smirked. Percy Jackson was the individual he had been told to search for by the Veil of Time and Creation. Heeding its advice, Naruto reclined into his seat on the mobile bus and made a decision at that moment. Ansu had enlightened him about the boundless potential and strength he possessed at some point in time. However, Naruto's main concern was regaining his erased memories and reclaiming his true identity. If Percy Jackson was someone connected to his past, then Naruto was determined enough to find him in hopes of restoring his mind. Decision cemented into his head, Naruto soon fell unconscious. A series of shutters rattled throughout the entirety of the bus. Naruto wrenched his crimson eyes open in avid annoyance at having his peaceful slumber interrupted, rubbing his tired eyes and groaning. Stretching his muscles until he heard them pop into place, Naruto noticed the blank looks in the eyes of the people on the bus. Eyebrow raised in confusion, Naruto rose from his seat and checked the area. Naruto's senses extended out to scope out the one who caused those rattles to spread across the bus earlier. Picking up on one monster's presence in particular, Naruto skulked through the large vehicle. Glass shattered from ahead where Naruto stood and two individuals flew out into the open streets of the country. There were no other vehicles on the road, except for the bus, so they were rather safe. Naruto took a fast glance at the entity that had launched them out of the bus and saw the Drakina, one of the callous monsters Khonsu pitted against him in battle to hone his natural instincts even more. The satyr and demigod. The Drakina hissed aloud. I will have immense pleasure in harvesting their organs for my latest meal. Not even acknowledging Naruto at all, the Drakina jumped out of the bus and left the mortals on the vehicle mind controlled by the mist. Teeth clicked together, Naruto followed the monster from behind. The satyr called Jeff had not expected for his mission of escorting this demigod to Camp Half-Blood to have gone so wrong. Adrenaline and fear were carved into his mind as he crashed into the open streets. Heart pumping at an unnatural rhythm and blood pumping in unconcealed terror, Jeff checked the pulse of his latest assignment. He was alive, but he was unconscious and ravaged by lacerations. Flipping downwards onto the concrete of the empty road, the Drakina let loose the loudest of hisses possible. Hunger marred its scaled features. What a fine feast the two of you shall be for me. Jeff gulped and realized the bus they were on had already started driving away into the distance. Even if he survived and defeated this monster, then he and his ward would be stranded in the countryside. Morphing the guitar pick in his hand into a dagger, Jeff hopped to his feet and stared at the monster in determination. His duty was to protect Johnson, the demigod who had been put under his care. The Drakini faded from his vision in a flash of incomprehensible agility, slithering to his left and striking its claws at his exposed chest. Leaping backwards, Jeff rotated his wrists to calm his restless nerves. Johnson remained unconscious on the concrete, labored breaths of pained exhaustion streaming out from his bruised lips. The Drakina licked its lips, amused. Come on, little satyr. Let me have a bite. Another slash from the Drakina's claws to the chest had Jeff dropping to his knees and grunting in blatant agony. Blood seeped out from the wounds of his upper torso. The Drakina hissed once more. Jeff closed his eyes, anticipating his death at the hands of this monster. Nothing happened after 3 seconds had passed. Eyes opened, Jeff sputtered out in shock. What the heck is going on? A blonde-haired teenager who looked to be 15 to 16 held the Drakina by the shoulder. Crimson eyes glanced at Jeff for the briefest of moments before they refocused themselves on the entity. Why the hell did you interrupt my sleep? Naruto spoke to the creature, annoyance on his whiskered face. I'm still exhausted. The Drakina hissed at Naruto, who smacked the meanest of right hooks imaginable into the monster's cheek. Rolling down into the concrete, the Impulsa felt the scales on its cheek crack a little. You. Naruto gave Jeff a nonchalant gander, crimson eyes bored. I have a feeling that you can answer some of my questions later. Desperate for any type of help against the monster, Jeff yelled. I'll answer any of your stupid questions if you can stop that monster. Much obliged. Naruto grinned at the satyr, stepped forward, and disappeared in a vicious distortion of speed. I'll handle this. Such speed. Jeff widened his eyes, stunned beyond belief. His speed surpasses the Drakina's agility by leaps and bounds. Jeff climbed off of his knees to ensure the safety of his ward. Johnson breathed out in pain fatigue, but the wounds on his chest weren't as intense as they were minutes prior to the blonde-haired boy's arrival. Having appeared behind the Drakina, the Uzumaki smacked his knuckles into the back of its head and hurtled it forward. Naruto cracked his neck, rolled one of his shoulders, and then vanished. The Drakina hissed in agony at the cracked scales on its flesh. Naruto blocked off its clawed punch, elbowed it straight in the nose, smacked a left hook into its face, and roundhouse kicked its hip. What unnatural physical prowess. The Drakina stumbled away, exhausted and scales cracked. I must slaughter this insolent child. Naruto parried a multitude of powerful blows from the serpentine creature, lashing his arm out and slamming his forearm into its neck. Staggering across the road they were on, the monster screeched. The chakra-enhanced kunai buried itself into the Drakina and scattered it into a hurricane of aureate particles. Naruto turned around, spotting Jeff tending to the wounds of his friend and assignment. Naruto sighed, head lowered in fatigue. That's it for today guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please consider like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget to check it out other video on channel. Thanks for watching guys, take care.